Hi, welcome to Rob and Stacy's Kovid Kitchen. I'm Rob.
I'm Stacy.
Yeah, she's a little camera shy. So the reason we're doing this, other than being bored to tears in the house, stuck with this COVID thing, is that I went to the market and discovered that there's nothing there and all the meat is gone and stuff is gone. So I thought maybe we'd do a little thing about, how to make what you have work. So the only thing that was in the market the other day was a whole chicken. Everything else was gone. So the whole chickens were there. So apparently people don't like to make whole chickens. They don't know how to make them or whatever. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to roast a whole chicken, and there's lots of ways to do it. This is the way I do it. One thing I want to talk about, it says right on the package here, cook thoroughly to 185 degrees. Well, that's just nonsense, because 185 degrees is literally cremating this thing, in my opinion. I mean, if you like it that way, cook it that way. But honestly, the FDA says that at 165 degrees, the bacteria on this thing all gets killed within about a minute and a half. And it'll stay at that temperature much longer than that. You can even go as low as 150 if it's 10 minutes. So, I mean, the idea is to reduce the bacteria from 100 million down to 1. So, and it'll do that in like instantaneously at 165 degrees. So, I'm going to cook this to, I don't know, right around 160, something like that. So, we'll see how that works. Hopefully that'll make it nice and juicy and not overcooked and dry and sticky. So that's what we're going to do. Here's what I'm going to use to get the temperature. I have a lot of different thermometers. This is kind of a general off-the-shelf thermometer. This is a Bluetooth remote thermometer that, we'll get it close with that. But this is the real deal. This is the ThermoWorks ThermaPen, and this is the best instant read thermometer you can buy. Reads perfect temperature in about 2 seconds. So that makes it really good. And if you turn it upside down, the numbers go upside down. It turns off by itself, turns on by itself. So Stacy got this for me for Christmas, and I love this thing. It really works great. So that's it. We'll get started and get this bird a-roasting. So here we go. We have washed and thoroughly dried the chicken. So now we just have to have our ingredients together. So I'm going to make this a garlic lemon herb chicken. And so I've got a bunch of herbs here. This is some rosemary, some sage, some thyme, and some coriander seed. And fresh lemons here and garlic. And don't be too precious when you peel the garlic. If you just cut the end off and give it a good whack, it'll come right out of the peel just like that. And there you go. So that's a quick way to peel the garlic. Okay, so now what we're going to do is brine the chicken. And what's a brine? A brine is just salt water. That's all it is, a mixture of salt and water. And it's like 1 tablespoon of salt to 1 cup of water is the basic idea. So we've got a plastic bag that I have thoroughly washed, and we're going to reuse because we don't want to be throwing plastic away if possible. And we're going to get this bird in here if it cooperates like that. And then we're just going to start adding this stuff in. Now, I'm going to add a little of the lemon juice, not too much because we don't want it too acid so it cooks the chicken. Now, some people stuff these things into the cavity of the bird, and that's fine. But my feeling is that there's a lot of bitterness in the pith of the lemon. So I want the juice, I want the little bit of the acid and the flavor of the lemon, but I don't want that bitterness. So I just squeeze a little of the lemon juice in here, like so. And then I've zested these lemons, as you can see, so that I just get the very outside of the skin. And that way you get the lemon flavor, but not the bitterness. So we're going to dump that in there. And we're going to dump the herbs in there. Mix it around a little bit. And then we're going to dump the garlic in there. No big deal. None of this is, none of this is polite and kind. You just got to get it done. And then we're going to just add the brine. So brine is an interesting thing. It's an interesting part of the process because brine is one of those things that where you, just by changing it up a little bit, you can really change the character of the bird. For example, you know, there's no reason why you couldn't add soy sauce to the brine or hoisin sauce or gin or whatever, you know, whatever you want to flavor the brine and completely change this. So you don't have to make lemon garlic herb chicken. You can make like a Peking duck chicken, that kind of thing, just by changing what you put in and changing what goes into the brine. So I'm going to add a little honey to this also, just for just a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of flavor. And yeah, that's it. That's enough of that. And there we go. We're good. And so I'm going to seal this up with any luck. And before I get it completely sealed, I'm going to burp as much air out of it as I possibly can. And that way the chicken stays completely in the brine and gets all, whoops, no, that's just a little, sprung a leak, so now we got to do it again. And that way it gets consistently brined. So now we stick this in the refrigerator overnight, let it sit, do its thing, and what'll happen is the brine, because it's salty, it starts pulling the moisture out of the bird, pulling the water out of the bird into the brine. But then, once that happens, it all starts to go back into the bird, and that's where all the flavor gets back into the bird, and that's why you got to do this overnight. Let it sit for a while so it has a process to pull all that out and then pull it all back in. So there we go. There's our brine chicken. It's going in the refrigerator. We'll see you tomorrow when this is done.